Major funding for Discovery Road, Native Americans and Sacred Water, provided by the George S. and Dolores Dory Eccles Foundation, with additional support provided by the National Park Service.
Welcome to another edition of Discovery Road with James Nelson and Marita Gallo. Traveling along the historical Mormon Pioneer National Heritage Area, these two are bringing you stories of long-ago pioneers, modern-day artists, characters,
hello, Discovery Road,
storytellers, and surprises.
That's the gossip.
I run some. You're killing me, Ed.
They're traveling the historic corridor, visiting towns and places of interest.
Hello. Hello.
Who knows where their next stop will be? But one thing is for certain. You can count on a journey filled with a carload of discoveries.
This is a story about being thirsty. That's really nothing new in the hot and dusty American West. Out here, water is life. The water story we are after, though, comes through the monocle of Native Americans.
We're here at 2 Mile Wash on the Kaibab Paiute Indian Reservation. This wetlands area we consider here in 2 Mile Wash sometimes substitutes for a resting place for migrating birds. You notice there's a lot of cattail in here. We're trying to remove some of it with the help of our environmental program.
Charlie Bullets is home out here. He's also concerned about what is happening all around these parts. Too many wells, not enough education about water, not enough respect.
Pa, as we refer to it, water, is one of Mother Nature's or the Creator's most important things, and I think we as humans sometimes tend to forget the importance of Pa. Pa is part of our body. We spend 9 months in Pa, in our mother's wombs. And from day one when you're a child, that's the first thing. Our parents put a little bit around our mouth when we're babies, so that way we know what it feels and tastes like. The texture on our lips. And even today we teach that to our kids, the importance of it.
Hiking into a wooded area, Charlie Bullets explains how the water is now divided among the small communities here.
This one being the tribes, right? I mean the Moccasin peoples right here. And then this one right here is the one that gets diverted to the tribes.
Controlling the water is like a spigot controlling the people.
This was a huge water resource when the Mormons moved in. You see the vegetation in this area is quite thick too, native and non-native plants. I was told by my elders was that's why this community was established right here. Our Paiute people used to live here, but when the Mormons moved in, they moved them out to the other village that's about a half mile from here. So this is the Moccasin Springs area, which is jointly shared by the tribe and the community of Moccasin, the Mormon community.
The Kaibab Paiute Reservation straddles the Utah-Arizona border, over 120,000 acres. Nearby, Lake Powell, Grand Canyon National Park, Lake Mead and Glen Canyon National Recreation Areas, and the Kaibab Tribal Headquarters.
Water isn't meant to be held back. You know, we have dams nowadays and we have structures that hold back water. But Mother Nature is the ultimate owner of elements such as strong as water, or pa, as we say in Southern Paiute belief.
A short walk from tribal headquarters, Pipe Spring National Monument, and more of the water story. The Pipe Spring water was an oasis a very long time ago. It nourished prehistoric Native American needs for well over 1,000 years, watering plants, animals, and soaking the soil so crops would grow in this barren land.
If you are coming through this area, the Indians would be planting here. Nomadic people, some of them, but the Anasazi were also here. There is thought to have been as many as 10,000 Native Americans here at one point, which meant that the water that was flowing here was a lot more than it is today. Now, obviously this area has dried up quite a bit. The water is everything with this park.
Pioneers, government, explorers, and Native American cultures interacted around the springs. Sometimes they clashed. There's Mormon history here as well. Brigham Young had his followers build a fort. They called it Windsor Castle, and a cattle ranch, all protection from outsiders and the elements.
They realized they had no need for defense against the local native population. The Paiutes were certainly not an aggressive tribe. The real enemy around here, I'm standing in. You're smart. You're out of the sun. That's a 55-degree wall. What's that worth in 1870 when it's 105 degrees outside? Much more effective in terms of living comfortably and sensibly.
When federal agents were on the prowl looking for a polygamist, many of the wives were sent here to Pipe Spring, and a heck of a lot of kids. It turned out to be a pretty good hideout.
The anti-polygamy laws were tough, and if men were caught, they went to prison. Oh yes, back then lots of men did a stretch or two of prison time for having more than one wife. One of the plural wives of a man named Edwin D. Woolley was slipped over the Utah border to hide out in Pipe Spring. Here's what she said in a diary.
So, about the year 1886, I moved to Pipe Spring. In other words, I went to prison to keep my husband out.
I think that it's important for just people to look at it with open minds. Often people come in and they have a bias already set up towards this type or that type of person. And it's really interesting to see how Pipe Spring has gone through the ages as being a collaboration of those people. And it's an interesting thing to see from all those different perspectives at the same time.
Polygamy stories, Native American stories, and precious water stories. And if you're lucky, a story from Charlie Bullets on your visit to Pipe Spring National Monument.
I mean, we've traveled in deserts throughout the world, and if there's one thing you always share, it's water.
Yeah.
And to see a building cutting off water.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the Southwest in the United States, where you see every town or every community, there was a spring there.
Yeah,
there
well,
was
of course,
a spring there.
of course.
Every town, but the other story you don't hear is that the tribes were either forced off or threatened off from those places too.
I mean,
No, that's why we were thinking it would be very easy to travel through the States without thinking about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons we wanted to come here, really.
This source was a huge seep spring that came out.
Yeah.
There are probably 4 more on the reservation that are still being used today.
Oh, thank goodness
So
for that.
we still do have the water. I don't know if you drove further up. There's the descendants of these people that live in the community, and they built their land right in the middle of the water source, the main water source.
Charlie Bullets, reaching into his Native American songbook, sending the message into the summer air. Black Rock Mountain, when will you bring the rain? Just a few miles off Highway 89 on the outskirts of Monroe, Utah, up there in the foothills, surrounded by an ever-present veil of steam, a rust-colored mound gushes hot water, thrills visitors, and whispers ancient stories.
The Native American Indian people have always given special thoughts and feelings about the water, about the mountains and the hot springs. And the hot springs and the writings petroglyphs that you see in the rocks or the etchings that you may see about different animals and people. For many, many generations, people use that as a way of communicating to one another. And as you look at those rock art, it tells a story. And the hot springs was another place of gathering. This is a place where they would renew themselves. They would come there and pray and bless the waters, thank the Creator for those beautiful gifts that have been given to them. And the people have always viewed the water as a living element.
They have been all through our valley here. Well, one reason I think they probably was up at the hot springs here. Where else can you find hot and cold running water? We got hot water coming up there. We got cold water running out of the canyon up here. And so these people had it great here. Wherever we live today, they lived at one time.
The Ancient Ones, a timeless water source, a chronicle of life, left for the world to wonder about. Suitcases full of that history, an intriguing homegrown accounting of the neighborhood. Michael Payne's ancestors were told the writings on the canyon walls are very sacred. Their meanings hold a vast treasure of knowledge.
I've made these pipes. This one is what they call the peace pipe, and they'd use it for making agreements and promises. This other one is the Four Winds pipe. They'd use it in their ceremonial, and it has the four bands, the Great Spirit, His Son, First Man, and the Spirit Man. They'd use those in their religious ceremonies.
Payne has taught, lectured, and given tours for decades about the hot springs near Monroe and the mysterious writings on the rock walls all through the area.
All through my family, we have lived and learned from the Indians and the Native Americans. We're still looking for this vast treasure of knowledge that we could learn from these ancient people.
They also felt like that there was a special element in those hot springs that allowed them to heal in ways that they couldn't find anywhere else. And so for them, they made offerings to the hot springs, and they would have special prayers and songs and dances to celebrate that. And they viewed it as a very living element, just like a human. And they would give thanks, and they would ask that it would be continued to be protected for today and for always.
A 1,000 years, then another 1,000 years or more. And many thousand brush strokes later, a story echoes from Native people.
Art is powerful. A painting is powerful. Much like a long time ago, lots of Native people all over the world painted on walls, on the inside of their dwellings. It's the same thing that's going on today. When you buy a painting, it represents something to you. It means something to you. You take it home, you put it on the wall, or give it away, whatever you're going to do, and it speaks to you. If you open your mind, the painting will speak to you, and you can get something out of it. A lot of times, lots of different things at different times of the year or different times of the day. The use of water is important in many of my paintings. The tribe that I'm a member of came from the Great Lakes region, and a lot of their survival came from the water. They traveled by water, and they gathered rice and beaver and things that relied on the water. That painting is just a tranquil scene where the three travelers, they may be warriors, they may be scouts, they may be hunters. That's kind of left up to the viewer, but they come along and they see this pool of water. They rest their ponies for a while as they scout and look around. They may hear something in the distance, and so it's a tranquil scene, but it says a lot about the environment of the warriors.
Wind, lightning, hail, rain. You know, these are all lightning strikes coming off here. Another one here. Water is in a lot of my work and my masks, and in the form of rain, and we got wind, lightning, the elements basically. I mean, when the rivers stop flowing, we stop flowing basically. So we got to have water. So I put it into a lot of my work as healing. Water is healing, and we need water. It's got to replenish the earth and rejuvenate and keep life moving forward. So I use it in a lot of my pieces in my booth and my art. Lightning, again, I have a piece right in front of me I'm looking at that has lightning on it, and there's some water and rain represented. So it's very much a part of what I do. It's got to be.
The actual piece is titled Our Mother, on a series of pieces that I'm working on a female figure titled Our Mother, where she's actually caressing the earth itself, and just our interpretation of another female figure of who we call Changing Woman, who's involved in a lot of our creation stories, a lot of our healing stories for the Navajo people. Again, you see her portrayed as a holy person, wrapped in a shawl, caressing the earth. You see 4 bands of colors at the lower portion of the painting, which represent our 4 sacred mountains. It's where we reside and where we live as Navajo people. And again, just portraying the world, the globe you see there in number 8, you can actually see through, so you can see actually all the continents and see how I portrayed Mother Earth and our mother caressing the world.
I think we fall short in teaching our future leaders, our children, about the importance of water. You know, we look at water as something that's going to be here for eternity. But now we're finding out that water is it's a non-renewable resource. And we need to tell our children how important water is. The water is alive to me. It's part of me. It's part of the circle of the American way of life.
The water story, the need to know why it is so important, the history that has been lost, dusted off, and brought forward. The story about water on stage, where it belongs.
I didn't know you could become a storyteller. I had no idea that it was any kind of career path. The image I always use is it was the water we swam and it was the air we breathed. We were just, my grandmother especially, she was a matriarch. She created a world of words around us. And words to her were sacred things. They were beyond any value. She didn't waste them. She didn't throw them away. You didn't forget hers. And they were meant to be treasured and repeated.
From the heart of Navajo country, the sweeping, spectacular Chinle Wash. Chinle Wash roughly translates to where the waters came out.
This water came from the mountain, came from the rain, or in the winter time, from the fall. Today, just from the rain or from the snow, this is where the water comes from. Dry in the summer, it'll be just soft sand, and it'll be just dirt there here in the summer. So now we have water here.
To a small town just off Main Street where you can hear Pleasant Creek running all summer. Behind this graceful, gigantic tree, the Native American story speaks to us.
We've always raised animals, cows, chickens, pigs. We've always had a garden. We just try to live off the land the best we can, like a lot of other people around. I don't know, we just take care of things, try not to destroy it so it can be passed on for generations.
My grandma, she lives up north in Provo. She used to have a whole bunch of these, and me and my sister, we used to catch a whole bunch of these and keep them. So I know a lot about them. It's cool. Okay, I want to hold that.
The influence of Native Americans and their view of water can be found in nearly every neighborhood. A connection to the past, once dismissed, is now embraced and valued. The Native American voice, an oracle and comfort for the world.
My dad, he always was proud of his heritage, and so we were always in the parades and dressed up in Native costumes. We learned how to take care of things, like everything that we're given that's around us is sacred and it has a purpose, and we need water for our survival, and so it's really precious to us, and it's great that we live here in the mountains. And the Native people have always been around here for centuries.
Native Americans were the first stewards of our environment. They have always been. Understanding their culture and their beliefs, it all comes together, and it is one with nature and the continuance of Earth. Our current day problems, water, air and those kind of things, but water specifically, they have dealt with for thousands and thousands of years.
Water to the Native Americans, to the tribes, is it's sacred. It's more than important. It's very sacred to us. We look at it as water, has blood veins that run through Mother Earth. Mother Earth being the supporter and giver of life for us.